Uh, Perfect. Thank you. We'll be doing a overview of all of our, new curriculums that our Reach Lab has been releasing, and then Scott will be doing a data dashboard walkthrough for us today as well. So first, let's get started with a pre-training survey. We always like to ask if folks can complete this for us, just to let us know who's coming to these trainings, and then there'll be one at the end to see if you're finding it useful. So you can go ahead and scan that QR code there on the slide, or you can go ahead and click on that link that I just sent into the chat. It should only take a few minutes or so. All right, absolutely no rush, but if you are finished with the survey, please feel free to give me a thumbs up in the chat so I can just see where folks are if we need more time. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, I'm seeing a few, but not all. Let's do another maybe 30 seconds to a minute. But don't worry, if you're not finished yet, we will be just doing just introductions. All right, great. Let's go ahead and move on with some introductions. If you're still working on the survey or just joining us, please feel free to click on the link in the chat and finish completing the survey. We'll just get started with introductions. So first, I wanted to introduce Dr. Bonnie Halpern-Felsher. She is a Stanford professor, the Toolkit founder, our Reach Lab director, and she's a developmental psychologist by training. So she's been doing research on adolescent risk-taking, adolescent development, and decision-making for over 25 years. So she's truly an expert. And if you ever have any questions for her about her research, our lab, our curriculums, her email is there at the bottom, bonnieh@stanford.edu. But don't worry, if you don't get the emails down now, we will have a contact slide at the very end of the presentation, and we'll even have a QR code if you want to take down our emails that way. And hi there, my name is Carly. I am the Director of Educational Trainings and Education Coordinator here at the Reach Lab. So I mostly work on the curriculum team, developing the curriculum that we'll be going over today. And then I also help to coordinate these trainings. So if you ever have any questions for me at all, or just want to get in touch with our lab, you can reach out to me at my email is my middle name, noelani@stanford.edu. But again, we'll have that contact sheet at the very end of the presentation. And then I'll pass it over to Scott.
Good morning. Good morning. Very quickly, my name is Scott Gerbert, and I'm the Director for Outreach and Strategic Partnerships. After having been an elementary teacher, an alternative high school teacher, a district office student services coordinator for 21 years, and then at the County Office of Education for 7 years. And then I joined the team at Stanford's Reach Lab. So good morning, and thank you for being here today.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. All right. So a little bit more of introductions. We always like to give a special quick thank you to our sponsors for allowing us to keep these trainings free and for supporting our research and community goals. So thank you to our sponsors. Now, the goals of our training today are to introduce the Reach Lab and all of our resources. Again, we will be doing kind of an overview of all the great and new stuff we've been releasing. We'll also talk about our Reach Lab's philosophies to drug education and kind of how we're developing the curriculum. Then we'll do a live website walkthrough, taking an interactive deep dive into our You and Me Together Vape-Free curriculum in specific. And right after this, Scott will also be doing that data dashboard walkthrough and any questions you might have on our data dashboard. And then at the end, we'll have some time to go over any questions. However, if at any time I'm going too fast or too slow, or if you do have a question, please feel free to go ahead and raise your hand in the Zoom. You can type it into the chat as well. I do have the chat up and I'm monitoring it every so often, but if I miss something or if you just have a question, we're a relatively small group today, so feel free to go ahead and unmute as well. Okay. So before we jump in, we always like to start off with our Stanford's land acknowledgement and our labor acknowledgement. So Stanford's land acknowledgement reads, "We recognize that Stanford sits on the ancestral land of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe. This land was and continues to be of great importance to the Ohlone people. Consistent with our values of community and inclusion, we have a responsibility to acknowledge, honor, and make visible the university's relationship to Native peoples." And our land acknowledgement, or our labor acknowledgement reads, "The United States was built on the exploited labor of kidnapped Africans. Our country's culture, economic growth, and development stem from the labor of enslaved Africans and their descendants who suffered through transatlantic trafficking, chattel slavery, and Jim Crow. We honor this labor, recognizing that our nation was established by enslaved individuals brought from Africa and the ongoing contributions of their descendants. We also acknowledge all migrant and indigenous labor, including voluntary, involuntary, trafficked, forced, and undocumented individuals who have helped build this country and continue to contribute to our workforce." All right. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and jump a bit into who we are as Reach Lab and what we do. So REACH stands for Research and Education to Empower Adolescents and Young Adults to Choose Health. And I know that's a little bit long, but basically what we do is we do that research that Bonnie is, an expert in: adolescent risk-taking, adolescent development, and decision-making. And then we use that research and we translate it into effective programs, we build curriculums, and we also work to inform policy. This is a brief look at our larger Reach Lab, and we're actually fairly big for a research lab, but that just means more people all get to have a part in this process of building our curriculums. We have postdocs, we have education folks, we have researchers, we have a psychiatrist, a medical doctor, and even graphic designers to make sure that everything looks amazing and really engaging for the youth. So this is our team. And also, very importantly, we have our Stanford Reach YAB, or our Youth Action Board. And this is a group of high school to early college age students, and they just let us know what's going on in their communities, what the latest products and trends are, if the curriculums are reaching youth the way that we hope that they are, if the activities are fun and engaging, and they also create some great content for us. So every year during the summer, we take applications for our Youth Action Board. We just had our first Youth Action Board meeting this past Saturday, and it's a great group this year. And we're really, looking forward to working with them, and we really rely on their feedback, and they do a lot of wonderful things for our lab. So that's our Reach YAB. So really quickly, I will be getting a bit more into this when we introduce all of our curriculum, and then we'll take that deep dive into You and Me Together Vape-Free. But this is a quick look at kind of our main curriculums that we have and all of our resources. Again, everything is completely free and available online. So we do not charge for use for any of our curriculums, and you can access them right now if you'd like to. But we will be doing that website walkthrough. So at our first, what I like to call level is our prevention, education, and awareness curriculums. These are meant to be taught in classroom by an educator, and we do have kind of that prevention tone. So we have our You and Me Together Vape-Free curriculum, which focuses on tobacco within the Tobacco Prevention Toolkit. And then we have our Smart Talk curriculum, which is focused on cannabis, and that's within our Cannabis Awareness and Prevention Toolkit. Then we have our Safety First, which is our harm reduction and comprehensive drug education curriculum. This is 13 lessons. And then I'll also get to this a little bit more. And then finally, we have our Healthy Futures intervention or our alternative to suspension. So hopping into our prevention, education, and awareness curriculums, You and Me Together Vape Free and Smart Talk, they're very similar. I like to think of them sort of as sister curriculums. They have similar tones, they have similar lesson plans, but they're just about different substances. One is on tobacco/nicotine, one on cannabis. And then I'll be going over each of these lessons here. There are 5 lessons for each of these curriculums for the middle and high school version. However, we do have elementary, which is 2 lessons, since we thought elementary was 5 lessons was a little bit too long for elementary, and that's geared towards about a 3rd grade reading level. But of course, you can always age it up or age it down depending on the group that you're working with. But yes, we have elementary, middle, and high school for both of these curriculums. They are both completely translated into Spanish. And we also have a Hawaii-specific version for You and Me Together Vape Free, and then a LGBTQ plus version, which I will also be introducing today. Then we have our Safety First comprehensive drug education harm reduction curriculum. This is meant for high school students who are at a high risk for or who may already be using substances. So this will have that harm reduction tone. And it is meant to be kind of a comprehensive drug education curriculum because it is 13 lessons, but similar to the You and Me Together Vape Free and Smart Talk curriculum, we do have lessons on brain addiction, stress coping wellness, marketing, but then we get specifically into each substance. We have a lesson on alcohol, one on opioids, including fentanyl, e-cigarettes, cannabis, hallucinogens, and stimulants as well. And then we also have our Healthy Futures intervention and alternative to suspension. There are 2 different versions to Healthy Futures. There is one version for nicotine and one for cannabis, depending on what the student has been found using. And then we have 2 different levels, my and our. So basically how this works is if a student is found on campus using one of these substances, or maybe they come to class high or something, instead of being suspended, since we all know they just go home and do it some more, they still come to class and they still come to school. But instead of a detention period or maybe after school or something, they come into the office and then they sit at a computer and they do My Healthy Futures. I'll be giving you a bit more of an in-depth look at kind of what Healthy Futures looks like, but it's a self-paced, module-based curriculum. They sit at the computer, they watch videos, complete reflections, answer questions, and then at the end, they get a certificate of completion. This takes about 40 minutes or so, maybe a little bit longer, depending on how long the student takes to read and how much effort they're putting into those reflection questions. Then, if the same student is found again on campus with these substances, we recommend Our Healthy Futures, which is a smaller group-led alternative to suspension. And that's usually led by a counselor or administrator, maybe principal or vice principal, with a small group of between 2 to 3 students. This program contains motivational interviewing techniques, and they also get a certificate of completion at the end of Healthy Futures. So if you do have any questions about these our other main curriculums, please feel free to let us know. We do have training specifically for these as well that can be located on our Eventbrite page. But I do know we have some scheduled with LACOE for later on. I think we have one in November for Healthy Futures, and then a couple others in the new year as well. So feel free to sign up for those too if you have any other questions. Great. So let's get into kind of our philosophies on creating drug education, how we best talk to youth. And to do that, we really have to ask ourselves the question of, well, why do teens use drugs in the first place? Or why do teens use substances? And kind of think about the thought processes that go into that. And to reach teens effectively, we really have to think like a teen. So we started to use the idea of this continuum of use here, and it's really important to recognize that all youth will be somewhere on this continuum of use. I say all youth because majority of youth will actually be in the never used section, and it's important to note that that's where majority of youth will be. Because there's this common misperception that youth will often see, just one or two times on social media, they'll see their friends use, and they'll think, wow, everyone else is using, so I also have to use as well. But that's a misconception. Most youth will be and never used. However, the youth that are using will be somewhere on this continuum because we have everything from experimental use, getting into misuse, physical dependence, and even a substance use disorder the further down the continuum we go. So different students will be at different places on this continuum. So we don't want to assume that everyone has never used, whereas a student maybe in your class or somebody you're talking to is misusing or maybe even getting into a physical dependence or further down the line here. So we always want to meet the student where they're at on this continuum of use, because if we assume they're not using, we tend to lose them or they kind of tune us out. And then similarly, youth can move up and down this continuum of use. So maybe they've never used cannabis or marijuana before. They've never used it, but maybe they're getting into misuse or physical dependence for tobacco/nicotine or vaping e-cigarettes. But then they can also move up and down the continuum. So maybe they've gotten help or decided to quit or gotten resources. They can move from physical dependence down or up, depending on where they're at. So again, it's really important to kind of gauge where the students are at, or the majority of your students are at when talking to them, and tailor our responses and the way that we approach drug education, communication using this continuum. So again, it's really important to put ourselves in teens' shoes and think about, what are the decision-making processes that are going into whether or not they're deciding to use substances and kind of, where they're coming from. And this kind of goes back to Bonnie's original research, thinking about how young people make decisions. And just like adults, right, we weigh the risks and the benefits, and then we come out from that equation, we come up with the solution or the sum, and that's how we decide kind of what to do. Well, what goes into the risks and benefits for youth might be really different than what goes into risks and benefits for us as adults, because there are real and perceived benefits to using. And to think about this, we can think about, well, why do people in general use substances? What are some perceived benefits about X? As adults, we can think about, well, what are some perceived benefits about alcohol? And we can do this with tobacco and cannabis as well. So for anyone, generally, people might want to use tobacco because of the buzz, because it tastes good, because of all of those flavors out there, right? Because it feels cool, it makes us feel more confident or less nervous or anxious. And similarly to cannabis, some folks might just like the feeling, might be using it as a coping mechanism or to address or cure other mental health challenges. But getting into why youth use drugs specifically, we have a whole list here, which I'll get into each of these just a bit. But we have things like flavors and products. There are a lot of different flavors and products out there. I believe there are over 15,000 flavors. The products out there can be easy to hide, and we'll show a slide kind of demonstrating that. Some youth are actually physically addicted to nicotine. Nicotine is very addictive to a growing and developing brain and body. So if they have been using and they are physically dependent on it, that could be a reason why they continue to use. There are a lot of marketing tactics out there specifically geared towards youth, and we'll get into some examples of those. We do have a whole lesson dedicated to that in our You Need to Get a Vape Free and Smart Talk and Safety First, actually, dedicated to marketing. Then we also have peers and peer pressure, access, misperceptions about or around these substances, stress and using these substances to cope with stress, and other social determinants of health. So these are all reasons why youth might use drugs and substances. And let's hop into that first bullet there, flavors. So there are a ton of flavors out there, lots of different ones, but many of them are geared specifically towards youth. We have one here that looks like Lung Hit, a juice box flavor, tons of different candy and fruit flavors out there, and majority of youth have reported that they have started or initiated use with a flavored product. So it is a big attractor for youth to start using. Another reason why youth choose to use is because of the products. Sometimes they just look cool, and sometimes they can be easy to hide, or they can be discreet if they do want to use it in class or at school or something. They think it's small, it blends in to their pencil case or into a desk. So this here is a example of vapes that we have confiscated or that have been given to us that were confiscated from schools. And we set up this kind of mock desk image here. So I wanted to ask all of you if you could put into the chat how many vaping or e-cigarette products can you count or see in this image? How many can you count? Some are a bit more obvious, right? Like the ones in the front, but then it gets a little bit harder depending on the product. Does anyone have a guess? I see eight, at least 10, seven, six. Great. Six. All right. Yeah, I saw Steven actually got the right answer. It's 10, actually. Um, Oh yeah, missed the black one in the back, Derek. Yeah, so it is actually 10, and this kind of goes to just illustrate, how easy it is to hide some of these products and what they look like. So again, some of them are more obvious, right? We have the Elf bar here. It's next to this peach mango hand sanitizer here, since they are the same flavor and they might have the same um, smell. The hand sanitizers are also very potent in their smells. And then we have the ombre elf bar here and then flume here. But then it gets a little bit more tricky. We have some that look like highlighters, some look like USBs that can hide in pencil cases or just among regular desk items. And then we have a whole bunch of them that look like pens here. So that can be another reason why you choose to use, is because of the types and styles of products out there. So moving on, we do have this infographic called SIGs and e-cig, and this kind of goes to the idea that illustrates that some youth might actually be physically dependent or addicted to e-cigarettes or vapes, because we know there are about 22 milligrams of nicotine in one pack of cigarettes, so about 20 cigarettes. In one Juul pod, there's 41.3 milligrams of nicotine, equivalent to about 37 cigarettes. And this is important to note because Juul came onto the market in about, I believe, 2015, but they were one of the first companies to come out with a salt-based nicotine, which means it allows the user to have less of a throat hit, which allows them to take in more nicotine. And that's really important when talking about the amount of nicotine that somebody can be consuming, especially for a young person whose brain is still growing and developing. And it's just a lot of nicotine for them to be consuming. We do have another popular product here, Views Pod, about 90 milligrams of nicotine, 82 cigarettes worth of nicotine. And then one of the most popular products is Elf Bar, or sometimes they change their name around to avoid, regulation. They are also known as Fly Bar, Lost Mary, and a couple of other ones. But they're also commonly known as Elf Bar. One of their products has 650 milligrams of nicotine in it, and that's 590 cigarettes worth of nicotine. That's a lot for anybody to be consuming, especially a youth. Another reason why youth may choose to use is because of marketing. We have a lot of different ideas here. We have things like Vape Goddess, or relating vaping to Santa, or cool smoking tricks, or even sports. So we have a lot of really awful evidence that we have in our lessons. We show the youth how to kind of pick apart what they're seeing and recognize targeted marketing when or if they may come across it online, on social media. We don't fabricate or make up any of these ads. These are 100% real ads put out by the industry. So that's marketing there. And we also have peers. So many youth start or initiate use because, or continue use because they think it's a social norm. Kind of going back again to that idea is of all that they need to do is see, one or two scrolls on Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok or something for um, them to think, wow, everyone is using, so I have to be using it too. And even saying no is hard for a teen. If they are at a party or something and a peer asks them if they want to use, and that's why it's really important to talk to teens about how to resist peer pressure. We do have a couple of activities in our slides that do exactly that. But again, recognizing that it's really hard to say no to a teen because there are potential risks to saying no. So, if you all could put into the chat, what do you think are some perceived risks about saying no to vapes? So, let's say you're a teen at a party, maybe there's somebody you're interested in romantically there, and they offer you a vape. What is a potential risk for saying no? If you can type it in the chat, it doesn't have to be long. You can do one word, a couple words. What are some risks to saying no? Sure, loss of respect. It's a great one. Yeah. Oh, hi, Mark. Friends will make fun of them. Yeah, absolutely. Being made fun of, being shunned. Yeah. Being bullied, name called, outcasted from friend group, isolation. Yeah, absolutely. These are all risks that are that come with saying no, and it can be as big as being bullied, being name called, any of those things, or it can be as small as not being seen as cool, or maybe not being invited to the next party, or maybe even being talked to less at the party. So there's a whole, range of reasons why it might be really hard for youth to say no, and that's why it's really, really important that we, meet teens where they're at, and then think about that scale that I had in that slide earlier, how teens think about the risks and benefits to using, and then how they come out with that equation. Maybe us as adults, we think, oh, if they're going to pressure us, they're not really a good friend anyway, but that might be a totally different perspective to a teen. So that's why it's really important to have person-centered drug education, which is based in how adolescents learn and make decisions. Basically, with all of the research that we do in the lab, we aim to keep teens safe by empowering them to make informed decisions using honest and fact-based science and facts out there. And then again, meeting teens where they're at, either on that continuum or just wherever they're at, mentally or in their quitting journey, if they are in their quitting journey. Um, and our goal is to normalize drug education communication with teens without normalizing drug use. And then with that, we come back to our free resources here, and then I'll be introducing some of our new curriculums that kind of fit under these, but are kind of new to what we have. And I did want to pause here. Any questions so far on anything that I've introduced before we kind of hop into our overview of our curriculums? Great. I don't see any questions. Feel free to unmute or type them into the chat if you do have a question come up later. All right, let's hop to you and me together, vape free. So again, this is our prevention lesson, elementary, middle, and high school. We have 5 curriculum lessons here, and then I'll be kind of introducing each of these 5, but they're geared to be about 50 minutes each, 50. And it's completely up to you whether or not you want to, use it depending on how your class is structured. So if you have a longer class period, maybe an hour and a half, you can always teach lessons 1 and 2 together, 3 and 4 together, or you can just teach one lesson and then supplement it with additional activities that can be found on our website. Or if you have a shorter class period, maybe 40 to 45 minutes, you can always teach half of lesson 1 on one day, half on another day. Or you can, if you just like are 5 minutes over, you can always, go in and then take out 1 or 2 slides or activities that would put you over time. However, I did want to say, while you are able to edit the slides, the further the more that you edit, the more that you take out, the further out you get from our evidence-based, our tested and tried and true curriculum. However, we leave that up to you. You do have editing access to make it, as appropriate or as tailored to your own class as possible. We do recommend teaching all 5 of the lessons in the order, in their totality, in the order that they are. So teaching 1 through 5, all of the lessons in that order. However, we recognize that different classes have different capacities and different time frames. So please feel free to use whatever makes most sense to you. And if you do need help, talking through what makes the most sense for your class, please feel free to reach out to us at any time. And we're more than happy to work with you on what activities might be good and what topics and kind of, what's really important, things like that. So hopping in, our first lesson is Full of Potential, Your Brain Nicotine Free. And I'm sure you all know that youth love learning about their brains. They love learning about the different components of their brain, what the temporal lobe does versus the frontal lobe. And we really approach brain development in this fun and optimistic way. We say that it's super cool that they're learning, growing, and developing. And that's why it's so important to protect brain development at this time and not introduce substances like nicotine into the brain. Lesson 2 is about the rest of the body. So lesson 1, we talked about the brain and brain development. Now we're talking about the lungs and the respiratory system, of course, the heart and the cardiovascular system, and even the digestive system and how vaping can impact that. So we talk about short and long-term effects. And we also talk a bit about how vaping can harm others around them. So it doesn't harm just the user, but also anybody who is near them, who's exposed to second or third hand smoke or aerosol. The third lesson is all about the environment. And we developed this lesson because we found that some youth, a lot of youth do care about their brains, about their bodies, but that doesn't always reach all youth, the biology component. Some youth think they're invincible, or they think, if anything bad happens to me, health effects or cancer, that's 40 years down the line. I don't really care about that right now. I want to feel good right now. But we've been finding that a lot of youth will care about their environment and the community that they're in and the people that they love in their communities. So that's what this lesson is geared towards. It's a bit about environment, the pollution and plastic waste that the industry produces, but we also do talk about communities and what a healthy community looks like in general in this lesson. Then the fourth lesson is Don't Be Played or Don't Be Fooled, How Tobacco Marketing Targets Youth. And this is the one that I mentioned earlier. We do have a bunch of examples of marketing that is targeting youth specifically. And what we want to have them do is be able to see these in case they come across them online on social media and be able to recognize it as targeted marketing. And we give them some questions to kind of answer or go through to see, is this message fair? Is it trustworthy? Who put out this message? Could they have an alternative motivation, like making money or making profit, right? So we walk them through these questions, have them pick apart the ads. And by doing this, we hope that it reduces the influence of any ads they may see in real life, online, or even in person. We just had a discussion, a research discussion about in-person like gas station ads, and they're often put, at a lower level, kind of closer to the candy section. They're depicting youth. So, there are a lot of depictions out there, and we want youth to be kind of prepared and to not be fooled and not be played in seeing these. I did want to mention as well, these example slides I'm showing you are a mixture of the middle and high school versions. So you might see some of them look a little bit younger, like this one, a little bit more fun and animated. And then some of them that you may be seeing are a little bit older, high school level. And of course, the main difference between those is, of course, the reading and science level, but then also the images, how they look, the activities are all grade level appropriate. Then at our final or fifth lesson, we have Be Your Strength, Stress Coping and Wellness. And we developed this lesson because in talks with our YAB or whenever we would do surveys, asking youth, well, what's your biggest barrier to quitting if you're looking to quit, or what's a reason that you started using? And a lot of youth will say, I'm just so stressed out and this is the only thing that helps. Or maybe my older cousin was using it whenever they were stressed and then I started using it too. So we really want to get at the root of this issue and get youth away from using substances as coping skills and have them, develop healthy coping skills and not rely on these substances to kind of escape from whatever stressors they might be feeling. And then to approach others that they know. So maybe then they're not using themselves, but they may have a friend or somebody close to them who's using. So always approaching each other with compassion and empathy and leaving that door open for getting help and putting resources. So I know that was really fast. That was a brief look at You and Me Together Vape Free, a brief taste of all 5 lessons, but hopefully you got a good taste of what the tone is like, kind of what our slides look like. We will be, again, doing a walkthrough of this in specific, but now I'll be kind of introducing some of our newer lessons that we have. So also within the tobacco prevention toolkit, we do have our menthol I would say more menthol lessons. There are 2 of them. It's not necessarily a curriculum, but this talks specifically about the impacts of tobacco marketing tactics, mostly on Black and Brown communities. So we talk about what menthol got to do with it, any new legislation, the products that are out there, and then specific marketing as well. So this is part 1, and then we also have a part 2 on our website, and that's within the tobacco prevention toolkit. Also within the tobacco prevention toolkit, which has been released in the past, I want to say a couple months, maybe about half a year ago, we have our cigarette lesson. And, we're focusing a lot on vaping in a lot of our curriculums, vaping and vaping products, but we also didn't want to lose that, cigarettes are still out there, and those who might be initiating with vapes can also move into using cigarettes. So we also wanted to have a lesson to kind of talk about it and then unpack cigarettes. So very similar to the topics that we have in Uni Together Vape Free. We talk about health effects, we talk about the respiratory system and lungs, the chemicals in it, and then we also talk about marketing and ads in this as well. So it's just one lesson, also 50 minutes. All of our lessons are designed to be 50 minutes. So you can always use these as supplements or as standalones. It's completely up to you how you'd like to utilize these additional lessons. And another curriculum that we have is our Smart Talk, which is located in the Cannabis Prevention and Awareness Toolkit, or Cannabis Awareness and Prevention Toolkit, and this is our curriculum. So it is very similar to You and Me Together Vape Free. Again, it's 5 curriculum lessons, kind of going over the same topics that I introduced in You and Me Together Vape Free, but the lessons here, or the topic here, will just be about cannabis. So again, they're about 15 minutes each, or 1 class period long, but you can tailor it to be appropriate or used in whatever capacity that your classroom has. We talk about the brain and how cannabis, particularly THC, works in the brain, the growing and developing brain. And we also do talk about products as well, and how we've been seeing this alarming rise in the amount of THC that it can be found in the products out there. Different methods come with different risks. So we do talk about all the different types of methods and risks there. Then we move on to the body again, the effects, short and long-term effects on the rest of the body, heart, cardiovascular system, lungs, and respiratory system, since cannabis can be consumed through inhalation. But also, this one is important as well, the digestive system, since cannabis can be consumed through ingestion here. We also talk about healthy people, healthy community. So we do focus a bit more on the community in this lesson 3, as opposed to the lesson 3 in You and Me Together Vape Free. We do talk about disposing and environmental waste. But in this one, we do talk a bit more about what a healthy community looks like, how cannabis use relates to or how it takes away from a healthy community. Then the 4th lesson again is about marketing, misleading media messaging and tactics used by the industry. And then the 5th lesson is about stress, coping, and wellness. So very similar again to that same lesson flow, lesson cadence that we have in You and Me Together Vape Free, but this one is about cannabis. So moving on to Safety First, that is the comprehensive harm reduction based drug intervention curriculum. It is 13 lessons, and don't worry, I'm not going to go over all 13 of them. But like introduced earlier, we do have lessons similarly to our prevention curriculums on brain development, the rest of the body, marketing, stress, coping, and wellness, things like that. But then we get into each specific substance: fentanyl, opioids, hallucinogens, and other drugs. And the purpose of all of our curriculums, but safety first being a harm reduction curriculum, is to encourage first for youth to abstain from use, but it includes a clear harm reduction message for youth who are experimenting or who are at a high risk for using, and to provide high school students with a scientifically accurate curriculum and other information to empower them to quit or reduce harm should they continue to use. And sort of in that same vein of healthy futures, we do have a standalone lesson of fentanyl and opioid awareness and overdose prevention. So this goes over, the history of opioids, how fentanyl. There's a fentanyl crisis going on right now, and we also talk about Narcan in this lesson too, where to get Narcan, how to use it, and things like that. So this is also a standalone lesson. You can choose to teach it as a supplement to any of our curriculums, or you can just teach it by itself. And that is also located on our website in our drug prevention intervention toolkit. Then we also have Healthy Futures, which again is that alternative to suspension curriculum or intervention curriculum. And we do have two different versions again. Nicotine version and cannabis version. And we also have a my versus our healthy futures. So this on the screen right now is my healthy futures. That is the self-paced, module-based one where the student comes into the office during detention or after school. They sit at a computer and they go through this kind of really fun video game-esque program. This is new. We also have English voiceovers. So if any of your youth require, somebody to read out the images or the slides to them, we do have English voiceovers. We are also coming out with Spanish voiceovers very soon, but it is available in English and Spanish. Just the voiceovers are for Spanish are coming very soon. So kind of taking a quicker look at My Healthy Futures, we have, the youth puts in their name and then the teacher code, which Scott will get into explaining a bit more in just about 15 minutes or so about how to sign up for this and then how to give the youth your teacher code if they are doing My Healthy Futures. But this is just another example of more of our slides that we have in Healthy Futures. It's very similar to tone and content of our You and Me Together Vape Free and Smart Talk curriculum, but it's interactive. So we have vaping is no fun in the lungs. They click through the magnifying glasses to learn about the different effects of e-cigarettes in the lungs, and they have to click through or theoretically read all of the text on the slide before they can continue on. Then we also have those reflection pieces. So there are the questions put in throughout the module-based curriculum, and then they have to type in their answers into these boxes, and then at the end they get a summary of all their answers to see how they answered as they were going through the curriculum. Then they also have, these kind of attention checkers or quiz questions. These are not collected, so they're not, added up at the end to see how many they got right or wrong, but these are just more, knowledge or attention checkers, very similar to the reflections that they have. So that is Healthy Futures. We do have more trainings on these curriculums if you are interested in learning more about these. But this is just a brief overview. I know it's a lot of content and a lot of introductions, but please, when we do the website walkthrough, take your time, kind of click through everything that we have and see what you'd like to use. Another one of our newer curriculums is Healthy Habits, Healthy Planet. And as I was mentioning before, many youth will care about the environment, the communities that they're in, and the effects that this industry has on their communities and the environment. So this is a 3-lesson curriculum. The first lesson talks about the lifespan of commercial tobacco. So the negative effects that growing tobacco or using tobacco has on the environment starting from growing. So we do talk about the vast amount of resources that it takes to grow tobacco, from the land to the water to the energy, and then actually producing these items. So whether that's cigarettes or e-cigarettes or other tobacco products, the industry produces a lot of waste or a lot of energy and resources go into producing these products. Then we talk about using the products and then the eventual disposal of them as well, and how this entire lifespan of tobacco is pretty negative or detrimental to the environment and to our health and resources. So after we kind of introduce that, then we go on to the impacts of commercial cigarettes and e-cigarettes on the indoor environment. So we do talk a bit about the health effects within the community. So second and third hand smoke, and how easy it is for people to be exposed to this sort of things. And we also have a really great advocacy pieces in here. So if we're talking about safe indoor air laws or clean indoor air laws, talking about outdoor air laws as well. So lots of different advocacy for keeping others safe. And then the third lesson is impacts of commercial cigarettes and e-cigarettes on the outdoor environment. So this one, we do talk a bit more about community and parks. And we also talk about the waste, of course. So we say that cigarette butts are the number one littered plastic item in the world or on the planet. I can't remember exactly what the statistic was, but it's like 3 point something billion cigarette butts are littered annually. You can use that and wrap around the circumference of the earth. I think it's like 3 times or something like that, or 2 times. I have to look back, but it's just a vast amount of waste, and a lot of cigarette butts are flicked as part of the experience of using. So we do talk about cigarette butts, and then we also talk, of course, about e-cigarettes and vapes and how the plastic waste kind of goes into the environment and how that affects the environment as well. So a quick trivia question for you all. What type of foods have the most microplastics? So when we're talking about microplastics taking forever to break down, and eventually they do end up in our water, nature, soil, and then into our food. So thinking about that, what type of food has the most microplastics? You can type it into the chat. Any guess? All right, meats or fish? Yeah, that's a great guess. Any other over processed food? Yeah, that's a good one. All right, any other guesses? Last chance. All right. The answer is actually seafood. So seafood, you got it, Mark. I think Derek as well, over processed food, that's a great point. I don't know about microplastics in processed food. I assume, it's probably not good, but maybe it's because it's so processed. They are able to take out some of the microplastics. But studies show that seafood is the type of food that contains the most microplastics because a lot of the plastic waste ends up in our oceans. We know about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, I think it's called, but a lot of that is microplastic. And our fish, the lobsters, other sea life, marine life do eat that. So they are very affected by microplastic waste. So I was thinking about that when thinking about, how to dispose of these items and then what kind of areas are impacted. So yes, that is our environmental curriculum. Feel free to take a look at it on our website and let us know if you have any questions. So finally, I think the last curriculum I did want to show you is the Pride curriculum. So this one is also new. This is geared towards LGBTQ plus youth. And our Pride curriculum, Pride stands for Preventative, Resilient, and Inclusive Drug Education. So we created this curriculum because, LGBTQ plus youth data show that tobacco use disproportionately affects youth in the queer community, particularly LGBTQ plus adolescents and youth between the ages of 13 to 17. And there are even higher prevalence of use for certain minority groups using tobacco and cannabis products or LGBTQ plus youth use tobacco and cannabis products at a rate that is 2 to 3 times higher than cisgender youth. And there's just a greater use to susceptibility to marketing, media messages, and other images among this group. LGBTQ plus youth are also at risk due to unique stressors within the community, and they tend to use tobacco and vaping products to cope. And also, research shows that disparities in socioeconomic status and healthcare access further heightens vulnerability to tobacco use. That is why it is really important to have an identity inclusive curriculum, and why we developed the Pride curriculum, which we developed in collaboration with many community partners. We had a lot of focus groups with youth within the LGBTQ plus community or within the queer community. And this curriculum is meant for youth aged 13 to 17 and can be used in a variety of settings, including in classroom, but also it is meant for programs and clubs like Gay Straight Alliances and other things like that. So our first lesson is about health effects, nicotine and cannabis use. We do kind of our general thing like we have in You Me Together Vape Free and Smart Talk, talking about the brain, the heart, and the lungs, but we do talk specifically about biological aspects that affect the queer community in general. So we do talk about like hormone replacement therapy and how using might affect that as well. We have this lesson on identity and connection. So talking about any specific stressors that youth in this community might experience and how substance use can affect identity and how sometimes it can be used for connection with others and within a community, but how, you know, real allies and real friends and real community will not force the use of these products that are harmful to you just for connection. So we have our identity and connection lesson there. We do have a lesson on balancing stress and mental wellness. We do talk specifically about identity here, intersectional identity. We talk a little bit about trauma and then how to appropriately cope with that and not rely on substances to cope. And then, of course, we also have a marketing lesson talking about the ways in which LGBTQ plus youth or queer youth are specifically targeted by the community, selling ideas of false inclusion, using, you know, Pride Month or you know, Pride parades to really kind of sell the products. And going back to that idea again of how true allies and while representation does matter, but true allies will not be pushing harmful products on the community in order to make a profit. So I'm sorry, I know that was really, really fast, but I do want to make sure we have enough time to get through all of our content. That's a brief look at our Pride curriculum. If you do have any questions on that as well, please feel free to let us know. So now I'm going to be jumping into our live walkthrough of the website. I now have about 5-6 minutes left before Scott takes us through our data dashboard. Let me open up a new tab for us, and I will show you exactly where to get all of these curriculums that I just introduced. I know it is a lot, so please take your time in going through our website. I just dropped our website link into the chat here. So if you would like to click on it and follow along with me, or if you'd rather just, you know, view the screen, that's totally fine as well. But if you click on that link in the chat, or if you just Google Halpern Felsher Reach Lab, oh, perfect. Thanks, Scott. If you just Google Halpern Felsher Reach Lab, that should be the first website that pops up. So I'll just show you a couple of things that we have here. But again, please, you know, do take your time, look through it, look through all of our different options that we have, our different curriculum and resources. So here on our landing page, we have our newsletter. We do come out with quarterly newsletters. So if you just want to see what we've been up to, what we've put out, this is our summer newsletter. We will be coming out with one in the fall. But like, you know, we introduced our environment curriculum, which is fairly new. We have our menthol lessons here and the Pride curriculum. We shouted that out again. So, you know, if you'd like to see our newsletter, that's a great way to keep in touch with us. But if you look at this menu here on the left-hand side, we have this is a new tab, our copyright and usage policies. So we do have, you know, some of our usage, terms of use. If you're changing anything, please do keep our logos on our slides and things like that. We want to keep it free and accessible for everyone, able to be edited. So with that, we just have our policies here. But here we also have our team, our research. If you're interested in seeing those, we'll come back to prevention and intervention curriculums. If you were interested in any of those other curriculums that I mentioned, Smart Talk, Healthy Future, Safety First, we do have curriculum trainings on those completely free. You can click on this and then sign up on our Eventbrite. But we also do have a couple more scheduled with LACOE for the rest of the fall and then going into the new year as well. We do have resources and infographics. So if you click on that one there, kind of in the middle, we have resources in Spanish, but I did want to show you our infographics, posters, and fact sheets. So if you click on that, you can filter by type of substance. So you click on that menu button there in the upper right-hand corner. We have tobacco, cannabis, prescriptions, and fentanyl, environment, and other. So you can filter that way, or you can just scroll and then look at all of our great infographics. There's that cigs and an e-cig infographic. We have different generations of e-cigarettes, tobacco 21. These are all available for download. So you just click on that red button right underneath them to download them as a PDF. You can print them out, hang them around your classroom. You can send it out to your students' parents, put it on your website, however you best see fit. And we also have different age groups that we kind of gear the information towards. We have one for adults and one for youth. So more adult facing versus more youth or student facing. Same thing here for non-nicotine e-cigarettes. So lots of different options there. But if you do post on social media or if you do, put it on your website, please tag us or look at that copyright page we have on our website. So scrolling back up here, that's under resources and infographics. We also have under resources and infographics, quitting tips for nicotine or cannabis. This is just if any student or youth comes up to you and says, hey, I'm kind of struggling. I'm looking for places to start quitting. Where would you recommend that I look, or what resources do you have? Where can I start? You can always direct them to this page here. Different quitting tips, like having a quit date, different ways to quit, withdrawal and what that might feel like, how to prepare the environment, getting ready on their quit date, how to avoid triggers, and where to get support. So it is just a Canvas slide deck, but it kind of walks them through that. And we have one for nicotine and one for cannabis. We also have our cost calculator here, which is a really fun cost calculator. Youth love using this. If you click on this, it'll prompt them to put in how much they're spending or how much they would theoretically be spending on these products, how often they buy, things like that. And then it calculates for them how much they spend per month and per year on these products. And it usually ends up to be a lot more than they think. So it's a really great eye-opener activity for them. In Healthy Futures, the youth do have to complete this cost calculator if they are found on campus using the products. And that's one of the ways that we kind of talk them through the consequences of use. Excuse me. We have the cost of vaping and then cost of cannabis here as well. And then if you look down a little bit more, we have our educational videos. We are very excitedly just coming out with our own education videos. We have our YouTube page now, and we have, I think, 3 or 4 different types of videos. So we have True to You, which are refusal skills or how to resist peer pressure videos. We have drugs in the brain and development. And we have some marketing videos as well. So that's really fun and a great new update. So you can click on educational videos and see our YouTube page. These videos are also interspersed into our curriculum as well. Then we have a bunch of other, tabs here in the news, podcasts, Youth Corner, Parent Corner. If any of your students' parents are interested in hearing more about our resources and things like that, you can click here. But let's scroll up a bit and let's go into our prevention intervention curriculums. And that's where you can find all of the curriculums I was introducing earlier. So it's about 5th from the top, prevention and intervention curriculums. And then we have all of our curriculums can be found within the toolkits. So it depends on what curriculum you're looking for and depends on what substance you're going to be working with. So we will be focusing on You and Me Together Vape Free today. So that is within our tobacco prevention toolkit. But if you're looking for anything else, you can find them in either of these two. Again, we really recommend you just spend some time on our website and click around and see, what you'd like to use. So clicking on Tobacco Prevention Toolkit, now this is everything about tobacco. Um, we have our toolkits here, and then we have the You Me Together Vape-Free curriculum, but we also have Healthy Futures since that can be used for tobacco. And then we have our environment curriculum. The Pride curriculum is also located here. And I think we have our menthol and cigarette lessons. So those are all within that tobacco toolkit that can be reached through our website. If you do bookmark any website, I highly recommend bookmarking that main landing page just because it's so easy to get to any of our other curriculums that you want to. It does take a couple more clicks, but I think it's really worth it because you have access to all of those resources, all of those curriculums, and you can get there from anywhere. But let's click on You and Me Together Vape Free within the Tobacco Prevention Toolkit. So I'm going to go ahead and put this link into the chat. So if you are still clicking around but want to follow along, you can click on that direct link in the chat, and that will take you to the You and Me Together Vape-Free curriculum. We have our data dashboard here, which Scott will get into in just a couple minutes. And if you scroll down a bit more, we do have more information about the curriculum, general information. But if you click on this menu bar in the upper right-hand corner now, you can go into any of these other useful resources that we have for you here. We have a tab on using Canva. So all of our slides are on Canva, which I'll show you next. But if you are not familiar with Canva or haven't used it before, we do have a whole manual that you can go to. Our wonderful graphic designer, Lexi, created this. But of course, if you have any other questions about using Canva, please feel free to let us know. So we have Canva, some warm-up activities. So if you want to do any activities with your students before even starting our curriculum, you can do this warm-up. Pre-post surveys have to do with the data dashboard, which is what Scott will be introducing in a bit. We have a parent letter if you want to send home a letter to your students' parents. It's just some general language that you can use. So feel free to take the template and change it. You can sign your own name, print it on your school's letterhead, or anything like that. We do have a couple of crash courses for instructors. So if you yourself want a little refresher or want to know a little bit more about what you'll be teaching or some of the topics that we talk about in the curriculum, you can go through crash courses there. We do have our different cultures and languages tab here. So that is where you'll find the curriculum translated into Spanish. So if you do want to use the Spanish curriculum, everything is translated, the talking points, the slides, the discussion guides, the Kahoots, everything is completely translated. So you can find it there. We also have different cultures like the Hawaii curriculum that we have, and we are also going to be inputting new or more languages and cultures here very soon. And then we have a quick FAQ page. But once you're comfortable with that, if you don't have any questions, whenever you're ready to actually download the curriculum, you'll go to whatever grade level that you want to work with, or that you are working with rather. By grade level here, and you can click on that. So again, elementary school is about a third grade reading level, but you can always age it up or age it down. Middle school here towards about a seventh or eighth grade reading level, and then high school can be used throughout all high schools, so starting ninth grade, freshmen, all the way to seniors. So with that being said, depending on whatever grade level you're working with, let's just say I'm going to click on elementary lesson 1 for an example. Click on that. Now you're on this lesson page. So you can go back to that introduction page with all the grade levels, or you can navigate to a different lesson. We do have that data dashboard again. And if you scroll down a bit more, here is a preview of our lesson. So you can preview the slides there. Oh, there's our data dashboard slide, which Scott will go over. We have topics. I will learn things like that. But once you're ready to make a copy of the lesson, so say you previewed it, you're ready to go, you do want to use this one, this is really important. You do have to be logged into your Canva account on this browser. So your account has to be set up and you're logged in. Then you click on this green bar up here that says click to make a copy on Canva. It's right above the preview. You click that. It'll ask you if you want to make a copy of the template. Your only option will be to make a copy. It's in purple, I believe. But you just click on make a copy of the template, and then it makes a copy directly for you into your own Canva account. Now, this is completely yours. You can, change any of the images if you want. If you do want to put in any images of like your own community, your own resources, that is highly encouraged. The places that we do really recommend making changes are if you have like a community agreement slide, we recommend that. There, in the environment lesson, we do talk about the community a lot. So if you want to put in pictures of a local park or something that everyone, in your school will know, we recommend updating that as well. And then we also recommend updating the resource page. So we do have a resource page in most lessons. It's located kind of towards the end, but it basically talks about what to do if you need help. And we do have kind of more general resources here, telling your parents, teacher, doctor, or adult you trust. We have the national helpline here. But if you have a specific resource in your school or in your community, or maybe you have a community health center that they can go to, we recommend updating that on this slide. Or if you want to list yourself as a resource, we highly recommend doing that. So yeah, you can edit these, but again, please do not change or remove our logos, which are usually located in the bottom right-hand corner of all the slides, but they might move around a little depending on the design in the slide. We also have talking points, which is here in the bottom left-hand side. Talking points are a combination of script and instructions. So if you do have an activity, the instructions for the activity will be here in the talking points. But otherwise, it's just a script for you to go off of. You can have it in front of you. You can print them out if you would like to annotate them in any way. You can have them in presenter view and just read off of them, or you can, write notes to yourself in the teacher talking points or the talking points note section. That's completely up to you. You can also share the slides. So if you click share in the upper right-hand corner here, you can share it with different folks. You can share it with your students, but I recommend locking the slides before you share with your students so they can't edit or make any changes to it. You can also download it as a PDF, PowerPoint, JPEG, lots of different options there. And you can also present directly from Canva. So we recommend, downloading the slides and making any changes or edits directly in Canva, and then also presenting from Canva. So if you click on present in the upper right-hand corner here, you can present full screen, or I like to use presenter view, which is the one that it pops up with the audience view and then the presenter view, which has your slide, the next slide that's coming up, and any talking points that might accompany that slide. So really easy to present. Canva also has a new great feature where you can present offline. So if you have this cloud with a check mark in it, that says that it's available for offline use. So if you're going into a classroom, or if you're going somewhere that doesn't have internet access, or if your internet access might be unstable, you can pre-download the slides, and as long as that check mark is there, you're good for offline use. All right. Any questions on Canva? How to make a copy, how I got here? All right. Please feel free to keep the questions coming if anything does pop up. But going back to that, our website, so we just click here to make a copy on Canva, and then we made the copy there. If you scroll down here a bit below the preview, we do have a couple of other resources for you. We have our talking points. So this is just a Google Doc, and it's a table of a screenshot of the slide and the talking points that accompany it. So if you want to print it out and have it in front of you, this is a great document to use. If you want to delete the talking points and have your students take notes on this table, we've heard some educators like to do that as well. So you're more than welcome to use it in that way too. We also have our discussion guides, which is this darker blue box here in the middle. Discussion guides are kind of like take-home homework assignments meant to perpetuate or continue the learning at home. A lot of times it will ask the student to open up a conversation with their parent and then complete the discussion guide. It's up to you if you want to assign it for homework, for extra credit, or do it in class. But they're just additional questions. And then we also have a Kahoot. So each lesson does have a Kahoot game. Kahoots can be accessed through the very last slide here. So we have, key takeaways, and then we have our Kahoot game. You can just click on this link here in the slide, and it'll take you to the Kahoot. We also have the Kahoots in an offline version. So if you don't have internet access, or if your youth might get a little bit rowdy in class, if they have, competitions, feel free to just click on Kahoot lesson one here, and it'll give you the PDF version, and you can print it out and have your students do it multiple choice style there. But yeah, just additional questions. The Kahoot is included in the overall 50-minute time period. They're between 5 to 8 questions, I believe, depending on the content of the lesson. And then, oh yeah, here's that Kahoot download, and then you can view lesson two, the next lesson at the bottom there as well. So all of our lessons are set up this way, whether it's elementary, middle, or high school, whether you're using Udemy to get a Bait free, Smart Talk, or Safety First, all of the lesson pages are set up like this. So you'll have to make a copy, and then we have all of our talking points, discussion guides, etc. at the bottom here. And then you can go back to introduction, that main page where you're choosing the grade level right from the website there. All right. Before I hand it over to Scott, any questions on anything at all? Any of our curriculum, Canvas slides, website? I know it's a lot of information. We went over a lot today, but we have a lot on our website. So again, please feel free to take your time, click around, look at all of our resources. All right. If no questions, I'll hand it over to Scott. Scott, are you good to share your screen? Okay, perfect. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing, and Scott will take us through data dashboard.
Absolutely happy to do that. And thank you all again for being online this morning. And thank you, Carly. I love seeing other people on the team present because we all present differently. And so it's nice to be able to see different styles. And so thank you for that. So really quickly, before I jump into the data dashboard, I'm just wondering, can I see a thumbs up or some kind of representation for folks who are already registered on our data dashboard? So anyone who's already using the Reach Lab data dashboard. All right, I've got a couple of the LACOE leads, and for whatever reason, it picked up my own thumbs up, which was interesting. So, all right, so thank you, Carly. All right, so for the rest of you, I'm actually going to walk you through how to register on the data dashboard. So we're going to do a step-by-step together. So I'm going to drop a link into the chat for our dashboard, and then I'm going to walk you through it. So I've just dropped the link to our data dashboard, and I'm going to share my screen. So on the data dashboard, on the main homepage, there's really two buttons. There's a teacher button and an admin button. And the teacher button for registration and login purposes just means educator. It does not mean certificated classroom teacher. So if you're a counselor, you're a school nurse, you're a community partner that's pushing into a school and providing on campus, after school, etc. supports, you can register under the teacher link. And the teacher link allows you to be connected to one school site, or if you are providing prevention or intervention curriculum at multiple sites, you just register once and you could be connected to 50 schools in your district or in your community. There isn't a limit actually on how many schools you can be connected to. The difference between teacher and admin is really on the admin side, you would register as an admin if you wanted to register because maybe you're supervising other people who are also going to be using the data dashboard. And so you're responsible for reporting your data and their data. So if you're just worried about your own data, then you register on the teacher side. If you need to be able to report or supervise people and they're on the dashboard as well, then you might register as an admin. So I'm going to click on teacher because that's the role I've got today. So I'm going to click on teacher. And it's going to ask me 4 basic questions to start with, which is my name, my email, and to create a password. So just whatever your name is, if you're following along, put your name in and your email address. I'm going to use my separate email address, my personal one. Just to let you know, it will only let you register with an email address that's not already in use. So if you're already registered on the dashboard, it will tell you that that email is not available. So if you can't remember if you're registered, you won't be able to register twice. It'll tell you that's not available. So I'll put in my email, set up a password that hopefully I will remember. Fluffy Cat 2 is my go-to one. So if you ever need to log in for me anywhere, just know it's Fluffy Cat 2. So the next screen it's going to come to is going to ask me to select the school or schools that I work in. So I'm going to check California, select one of the cities. You can start typing in a city. So if I wanted to put in San Francisco, I can start typing in San Francisco and it'll take me to that section of the dashboard. So San Francisco, and then I select one of the schools that's in that city. I will say that some of the cities and some of the schools you might think are located in a specific city, but sometimes based on how they're reported to California Department of Education, state or federal list of schools, it's actually in a neighboring city. So just know that you may think the school is in San Francisco or LA or something, and maybe it's in a smaller city. So if you don't see your school listed, you can let me know via email, or you can look in the surrounding city to see if it's there. So I'm going to select Aptos Middle School as my school that I teach at. The buttons that are down below here, I teach multiple classes or periods at this location. You want to click on that if you want period by period data. So for me, when I'm doing interventions, I'm not seeing the students based on period. I'm seeing them some point during the day. So they'd be confused if I said, if the question they got asked is, what period do you have Mr. Gerbert for? They won't know what period they have me for because I'm providing an intervention. But if you want the data period by period, you'll click on this. I teach multiple periods or classes or periods at this site. If you don't need it broken down by period, just leave that one blank. And if you work at multiple sites, you can add more sites here. But what I probably would recommend, and I'll show you, is how to add additional sites once you're already registered on the dashboard. So if someone asks you to teach a prevention or intervention at another school site, you can always add more school sites. So I'm going to leave that blank and I'm going to click submit. So the first thing it takes me to now is my teacher code. That's the first thing that I see. So I see my teacher code up here is E0C58CCF. There are no capital O's. So if you see something that looks like this and your students are going to enter it, that's a 0, not an O. So I've got my teacher code. So when I go in right now, I'll show an example. I'm going to copy that and I'm going to go to the You and Me Together Vape Free curriculum that Carly was showing. I'm going to show the elementary version. So this is the elementary version of You and Me Together Vape Free. I'm going to scroll down. I can see these slides, the preview. I'm going to click through. If I were to scan this right now or give my students this QR code that's down at the bottom, it's going to then say, enter your teacher code. So I'm going to put in the code that I was just given, and it tells the student, you've successfully joined Scott Gerbert's class. And I only see grade level. I don't see multiple schools options because I only teach at one school. So I'm going to take you back right now. I'm going to go back to my data dashboard. And now I'm going to click on where it says profile. If I click on profile, it shows that I'm Scott Gerbert and my email address, and that I'm at Aptos Middle School in San Francisco. But now I want to add a second school site because somebody just called me and said, Scott, I need you to go to Dublin High School in Dublin. So I'm going to go and add another location. So I clicked on, let me go back. So I clicked on profile. I clicked on this red plus sign. Choose California again. I know that I'm in Dublin, that I'm being asked to go to. And Dublin High School asked me to come out. So I've now added Dublin High School to my list. So if I click on profile, I'll see those two schools. The cool part with that is it immediately adds that school onto my drop down for the students. So now I'm going to go back, go to that same QR code to take the pre-survey, enter the teacher code that I had just been given. And now it says you've joined Scott Gerbert's class. And now it gives the students a drop down of the two schools that I support. So again, you can have one school on there or you could have 100 schools on there. That won't change. And it automatically tells them that they're taking the You and Me Together vape free pre-survey or before. The surveys are all anonymous. So you're not going to be able to match up little Scotty's pre-survey with little Scotty's post-survey. And we do that so we don't have to have a data sharing agreement or memorandum of understanding between Stanford Reach Lab and your school or your district or your county. So that's why they're anonymous. So when I go back in, now I've got my name and my schools I'm connected to. I can always, if you don't want it to show as Scott Gerbert's class, you want it to show as Boys and Girls Club, you can always change that to, if you work at Boys and Girls Club in know, Hilo, Hawaii. We're going to go with that. So Boys and Girls Club of Hilo, and then hit Save Changes. So now when the student goes to take the pre-survey and they enter my code, now it says, you've joined Boys and Girls Club of Hilo's class. So if it's not your personal class, if you're doing something that's an intervention for your school or district or other program, it doesn't have to say your name as the class the students are entering. And again, that's changed by on your profile tab by updating your name. So I'm going to go back just as a reminder. Once you register on the dashboard, it'll give you your teacher code. It'll be unique to you. And it doesn't matter which of the curriculum or interventions you're using from Reach Lab. If it's You and Me Together Vape Free, if it's Smart Talk, our cannabis curriculum, if it's Safety First, our comprehensive drug education curriculum, if it's Healthy Futures, your teacher code does not change. So your data will all come into the same place. The last piece, which I'm going to show you, but we're not going to dive into because you don't need that information yet, is this metrics tab. Then makes it so that as pre and post survey data comes in, it will generate an Excel file under this metrics tab. Again, I'm not going to dive into it. I would love to mid-year or later on in the year be able to do a training for all of you on how to export that data and run some reports with that to be able to show that you're moving the needle. But to share that right now, I think would be information overload for you and not something you could work on or use right now. So again, homepage gives you your teacher code, and your profile is where you can see your name, email, and what schools you're connected to. All right, so that is the basics of the data dashboard. I'm going to hand it back to Carly and Derek and team to finalize the session, but thank you for letting me jump in.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing, Scott. I just have a couple of final slides to go over. here is that post-training survey. So just like Scott was explaining, we have the students do pre-post. If you could do this post for me, let me drop the link into the chat. We do have about 4 more minutes, so if you want to take the rest of the time to finish up that survey, or as long as you get the link, that's totally fine as well. Just don't forget to finish the survey. I'll leave the QR code up for just another moment, but the link is in the chat now, so you can click on that. But if you want to follow us on social media, please do. We are on X, or what was formerly Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. All of our ads are Stanford Reach Lab or Stanford TPT. So feel free to give us a follow there. Scott just put in his email and Calendly. I love that. Calendly is great. Super easy. So Scott's there. And then, as promised, this is the contact slide. So we have our general Stanford Reach Lab email here, Bonnie's email here, and my email. I'll also type in my email into the chat. Um, Feel free to reach out to me as well. But yes, thank you all so much for being here on this Monday morning. Wishing you a wonderful rest of your week. And Scott and I will be here for any other questions, if you all have any questions. Awesome. Thank you, Mark. Or Derek, do you have any updates or
I was just going to
reminders?
mention that to all the folks who are in attendance to today's training, we will have a recording and we're sending it out to everybody who was involved today.
Awesome. Thank you so much.